Hello, hello, hello everyone, and welcome to another Fallout 76 Legendary Crafting video. Today we'll be crafting up some handmaids and fixers to see if we can get anything interesting. As always, I'll try my luck and talk about what makes each one good, bad, or somewhere in between. But before we do that, it's time for me to talk about something important. One thing that you'll notice that's a little different today is the banner across the top of the video. I've dedicated this past week and at least next week to participating in Fallout for Hope to raise funds for Project Hope, an organization that's providing urgently needed medical supplies and health screening services for the now over 1 million refugees who have left Ukraine due to the Russian invasion. The vast majority of these refugees are women and children, many with pre-existing health conditions or injuries that they've sustained as they made their way to the border. The services that Project Hope and numerous other organizations are providing are absolutely vital, and I hope you can contribute. We've raised $1,500 so far on this channel alone, and with your help, we can do even more. If you'd like to donate, you can find a link to the campaign in the video description, or you can just scan the QR code in the top right on your screen using your phone, and it'll take you right where you need to go. As this is a pre-recorded video, you won't see the donation bar move on the screen, but I will most certainly acknowledge any donations we receive on our next live stream. The generosity of all my viewers so far has amazed me. Let's keep it going. And now, let's craft some legendary weapons. Alright, let's get started with some handmaids. Our first one, and I know the name of the primary effect is getting cut off by the banner, but you'll just have to take my word for it. Hunter's Handmade with bashing damage and extra perception. So this one, for me, is just kind of garbage, unfortunately. With Hunters, it's one of the least useful of the situational damage effects. You're not going to carry around a special weapon just to go hunting for animals. Yes, I do believe it counts against the Scorchbeast Queen, but there's plenty of other things that count against the Scorchbeast Queen, so I can't really imagine any reason to keep this one around. Bashing damage, as always, is useless. A little extra perception will help us with our VATS accuracy, but that's pretty insignificant. So unfortunately, this one's a dud, and I think we're just going to go ahead and re-roll it. And with the re-roll, we turn it into an Aristocrat's Handmade with exploding bullets and faster movement speed while aiming. Unfortunately, the faster movement speed while aiming effect is fairly useless for most players, as once you have the Speed Demon mutation, you won't see any notable effect from that. But Aristocrats is a pretty solid effect, especially if you're running a full health build. It's one of the few that doesn't really require any trade-offs. Once you start saving up a ton of caps, you can max out that damage buff. It'll give you an extra 50% damage if you're over 29,000 caps. So that's pretty solid, and bullets exploding for area damage is always a popular effect. That's going to give you some area of effect damage, maybe help you pick up a little XP at crowded events and things like that. So this one is definitely a very solid roll. Let's keep moving along. And next up, we've got an Executioner's Handmade with the last shot effect and extra agility. So the Executioner's effect I actually like. It's not as useful here on a handmade where you're already doing pretty solid per shot damage, but still and yet against bosses, things where you're going to be putting a lot of bullets into something, that extra damage on the tail end really, really helps. It does seem to still have a multiplicative effect, which of course could be changed at any time, and we just had an update yesterday, so it may have been changed already, but it definitely seems like a really solid payoff for the effect. Unfortunately, our second star is the last round in a magazine, does a 25% chance to deal double damage. That is a completely worthless effect. Typically with a handmade, you're going to be doing tactical reloads, so it's very rare that you're ever going to actually fire the last round in your magazine. So that kind of sucks, but the Executioner's effect's pretty good. Let's go ahead and roll another one. And we've got Bloodied. All right, that's good. Bloodied is always good. Plus 25% damage while aiming and extra perception. So this isn't a bad roll. Not a god roll per se, but not a bad roll. So here you've got the Bloodied effect, which is still going to give you the biggest damage boost out of any of the legendary effects. When you combine that with Adrenal Reaction and all the other good stuff you get from running a low health build, It's absolutely the most desirable of any of the legendary effects in the game. 25% damage while aiming. If you're a VATS user primarily, then that's not really doing anything for you. But if you're not, if you're somebody who free aims, especially PC mouse and keyboard players tend to be a little more oriented towards free aiming than when you're playing on a console with a controller. So you definitely get some mileage out of that. You get a little bit more of a damage buff. Extra perception will help your VATS accuracy. It's minimal, but if it's on there with a couple of other really good effects, then hey, you can do a whole lot worse than that. So here we've got another solid roll. We've had 2 good ones so far. Let's move along and see what else we can do. And next up is a quad with 25% damage while aiming and less VATS AP cost. So this one's kind of intriguing. The quad effect is always popular because it means less reloads. So when you're fighting bosses, while it doesn't necessarily give you a damage buff, it does help that you don't have to reload as often. Extra damage while aiming. If you're a free aimer, there's a nice bonus for you. You get a little extra damage. So quad with that kind of gives you a best of both worlds. You get a small damage buff while also getting the capacity buff, which is great. If you are not a free aim player and you use VATS, then this one has a 3rd star, which is 25% less VATS AP cost. So certainly not as good as having 2 VATS effects if you're a VATS player, but at least you get a little something there. So you get a little bit of a best of both worlds scenario. Another really solid handmade roll. So we've had 3 good handmades, not god tier handmades, but 3 good ones. We're going to roll 1 more and see if we can get another one before we move on to fixers. And our last handmade is, oh, these are bad. I hate it when this happens. We've got suppressors. The suppressors effect, in my opinion, is just useless. There just isn't any enemy in Fallout 76 that is doing so much damage to you for so long that you need to suppress it. There just isn't. I wish there was. It would make things more interesting, but sadly there's not. And then it combines with 25% faster fire rate. That's one of the most, if not the most, desirable 2nd star. Unfortunately, it's paired with a useless 1st star. So that kind of sucks, but hey, we get what we get. We got 3 good ones. We can't complain too much. And extra agility will, of course, give us a little bit more AP, which doesn't hurt, but this one, let's just be honest, it's going right back in the script bin. Let's switch over to fixers. All right, now the fixer, we don't have to worry about the Project Hope bar cutting us off because Bethesda still hasn't fixed the thing where it says the legendary effect at the top anyway. So this one is a 2-shot with VATS critical shots doing 50% more damage and 25% less VATS AP cost. So this isn't bad, but I don't love it. I just don't love the 2-shot effect. 2-shot with explosive is great. 2-shot with anything else really seems to leave something to be desired. VATS critical hits doing more damage is good. Less VATS AP cost is great. Those 2 things synergize really well together. Unfortunately, you have a pretty big accuracy drop-off with 2-shot. So I don't know quite if that's really going to do that much for you. So don't love the primary effect, but I absolutely love the 2nd and 3rd stars together. So I'm sure there's someone out there who just absolutely loves 2-shot weapons, and I'm sure they'll absolutely love it when they find it in my vending machine for very, very cheap. Let's keep going. And next up is a mutants with replenishing action points with each kill and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. I don't love the mutants effect. Simply because it's only a 25% damage buff. You get 5% for each mutation, but it only goes up to 25%. So it's not a huge damage buff. However, this is a pretty solid one for a VATS player. Replenishing AP with each kill. You kill things really fast with a fixer. If you're a good stealth commando build, things don't live long. So you're going to keep your AP going pretty efficiently here. And then your VATS critical meter is going to fill faster as well. So you get more VATS crits, which is going to mean more damage over time. So the combination of these effects is pretty good. Would I use this over a Bloodied or a Vampires or something like that? No. But if I were a full health build, this one might be appealing. especially if I was somebody who maybe doesn't have a great fixer yet. This one isn't a great fixer, but it's solid. If you're a full health player and you're looking for a little bit of an upgrade, this one could definitely do some work for you. So not bad, not great. Let's keep moving along. And now we've got an instigating, replenishing action points with each kill, and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. So there was a time when this would have been awesome. Unfortunately, they nerfed the hell out of instigating, and it just kind of sucks now. Basically, you're doubling your base damage of the weapon for all intents and purposes, and that's just barely noticeable. So yeah, unfortunately, definitely leaves a lot to be desired. The second and third stars are identical to the last weapon, so they're desirable for exactly the same reasons. No reason to spend a ton of time on that. Unfortunately, the instigating effect is pretty underwhelming these days, so sadly, not too impressed with this one. And now we have a nocturnal fixer with VATS critical hits doing 50% more damage and extra perception. Nocturnal got a buff not too long ago, so it's definitely better than it used to be, or maybe it wasn't a buff, but it was an improvement that maybe isn't a buff. Technically, its max damage is the same as it ever was, but the difference is it no longer has a negative effect when you use it during the day like it used to. So Nocturnal can be very useful. Basically, for half your in-game time, you're getting a pretty solid damage buff, which is good. It's not technically the same buff the entire time, but it's pretty close. VATS critical hits doing more damage. If you're a VATS build, that's kind of a no-brainer, especially if you're built around VATS criticals. You can deal quite a bit of damage that way. Extra perception again, teeny tiny little bit of extra VATS accuracy. Not enough that you'll probably notice, but it's there. So here again, not a great roll, but kind of an okay roll. I think the Handmade was definitely a little bit kinder to me than the fixers have been so far, but that's why Todd made more than one legendary module. Let's try again. And now we've got a quad with replenished AP with each kill and faster movement speed while aiming. So good first and second stars. Third star, we talked about it earlier, really doesn't do anything for the vast majority of players, which is a shame. I think they could do a little better with that, or just remove it, get it out of the pool altogether, because it's not really doing anything for anybody. But the quad effect, awesome. On commando weapons, it's great. Usually you have like a 25 round magazine on here, maybe a little less depending on which magazine you choose. So being able to bump that up to 80 rounds is awesome. Replenishing AP with each kill, if you're a VATS user, super helpful. You can plow through areas, clear out tons of enemies very, very quickly, and keep your AP bar nice and high so you're not stopping to refresh that often. Sometimes that's even good enough to spare you a point or two off of Action Boy or Action Girl, or, you know, rearrange some of the ways you do different things. So that can be very, very helpful. So this one's a pretty solid roll. Here again, not a god roll, but a good roll. I'll take a good roll. That's okay by me. All right, we've got two more fixers to roll here. Our second to last one is Gourmands with limb damage and extra perception. I'm not a huge fan of the Gourmands effect. Basically what happens is you get an extra 12% damage for each of your hunger and thirst meters being full, so a total of 24%. I'm not exactly, I don't know if those stack on top of each other or if they're additive to each other. Either way, it's fairly underwhelming, being less than a 25% damage buff when there's so many other things that do that already. But Gourmands can be good for earlier game players or mid-level players who don't really have a lot going on and their perks aren't perfect yet. It at least gives you a little bit of extra damage for something that you're probably doing anyway, keeping your hunger and thirst meters full. Limb damage is an effect that I just don't love here. On a stealth commando weapon, you're killing things very quickly. They will die before they know that their limb has been broken. So what is the point, really? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And even on bosses, it doesn't seem to do much. So, all right, kind of a meh roll. Let's see if we can get anything better with our last one. And not really. Okay, so we've got Furious. Damage increases after each consecutive hit on the same target, with bashing damage and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So the Furious effect isn't bad, especially if you're going up against bosses where you're going to be putting tons of shots on the same target, so you will max out that damage, which is good, but on more run-of-the-mill things where you're only hitting them 1 to 3 times, you're not really getting a ton out of that. So I don't absolutely love the Furious effect. Certainly don't hate it, but I don't love it. Bashing damage is absolutely worthless. 250 damage resistance while reloading. I guess it's better than nothing. If there's a time when you're vulnerable, it's when you're reloading, but these weapons, the Fixer reloads pretty quick, so I don't think you're really going to see a ton of mileage out of that. But what can I say? The Fixer rolls weren't amazing. There was one that was pretty good, but the rest of them were pretty meh. But the handmade rolls, those were awesome. That made up for it. And that, my friends, is going to wrap this one up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, you know the drill. But more importantly today, be sure to click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the top right of your screen to make a donation to Project Hope. Time is of the essence, and your donation will provide much needed relief to some of the now over 1 million Ukrainian refugees who fled the invasion to neighboring countries. I'll certainly appreciate your support, and it'll do a world of good. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time.